Bases dropped for a three-way dance, at least to start things off here at Soccer Down here on your Thursday. John here, Jarrett there, Nick there, and we are down to two. We know who the championship game is going to be in the decider for figuring out who's the best in the world in 2022. And we've also got, yes, exactly, Sean, friends. Yeah, we have to get into that. We're going to get into that this morning. Hour number 2, probably going to spend a lot of time going over the Weil Report yesterday with the NWSL because there's a lot to get through. It's 128 pages, but we're going to start on page 100 and go there. And there's a lot to get into. And programming note, we're going to try to catch up with Tyler Griever from WHAS-TV in Louisville. He had a rather large investigation in between Yates and Weil. And there were some things that were new to him. And we'll get the Louisville perspective from Tyler, and that'll be up on the network hopefully later this afternoon. We'll catch up with him in the middle of the afternoon because he had a very busy day yesterday. And I think he appeared on all of the newscasts in the afternoon. And so you want to release a report, do it during a World Cup semifinal. So we got that in hour number 2. But with Jarrett and with Nick, opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. My apologies, Nick, that the way that this is orchestrated, it just goes right through the middle of the screen. No offense. I'll go through this as quickly as possible to your avatar. But kickoffcoffeeco.com and Kickoff Coffee CO, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget to, when you're picking up your Kickoff Coffee, that you can use the code SoccerDownHere15 and get 15% off your purchase, and then they in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Now, opening kickoff this morning on somebody's Twitter account. An individual said that it was time to leave Atlanta United after 3.5 years. And so what I wanted to get into, guys, was Jack Collison. Jack Collison is leaving Atlanta United. There is a report out there that he is going to another city in MLS Next Pro to take over their program. Nothing official yet. But, Jarrett, let me start with you. The departure of Jack Collison from the Atlanta United umbrella, you tip your hat to the guy because he really did some tremendous work in a situation in USL Championship where you're going up against guys twice the age of the players that you're trying to train.
Yeah, you're constantly in a situation where you're trying to get things going as a manager and strike that balance of, hey, we're trying to develop, these next players who can be next up while also trying to win games because winning does help those things with development. We're also trying to balance out that you've got a bunch of kids, a lot of times teenagers, playing against adults. And it's tough, and it will wear on you because you're in a situation where you're going to go through stretches where you're not winning games because you've got a bunch of teenagers playing against guys in their 20s and 30s. And they are seasoned professionals. It's not even just the age aspect. It's the fact that they're seasoned pros. And you're going to have to kind of wrestle with that and deal with the ups and downs that comes with it and inconsistencies of young players while still understanding that, your job isn't necessarily to win a championship at that level. It's to develop that next generation. It's tough. But go ahead, on.
No, it's like, Nick, I was going to say, what we've seen with Jack Collison, we've seen a lot of young talent come through with Atlanta United too. And to see Jack on the sidelines working with that talent, getting them ready for their time with Atlanta United, obviously sad to see him go, but you know the resume that Jack is carrying with it.
Yeah, if it is Huntsville, that's certainly their gain. But the key thing to look at here is the pipeline, right? Is that it's not just wins and losses. Obviously, that can weigh on a manager of a second team, the wins and losses, and we give him his flowers because he's trotting literal kids out against adults who are earning paychecks, and that's a different level of competition. But the pipeline has been steady, right? You've been getting players up to the first team who don't look like they're completely lost. Sometimes you elevate kids from USL teams and they show up and they look like they've never played the game a day in their life. Not their fault. It's just it's a different stage, different co-stars, and it's easy to look lost in those moments. But Collison did a great job of getting it, these kids ready to go, and he has to be applauded for that. But business continues, the pipeline continues, and it's next person up. And if any organization has proven that they've been able to, change the pieces and still still have that pipeline maintain its integrity, it's Atlanta United and Atlanta United 2 have figured out a way to do that. So, likewise, I think they're going to probably make that change internally. But with Garth there, all bets are off. So it will be interesting to see how they handle things moving forward.
Amelia, we don't really know. There is the one report out there that he is going to Huntsville City. Nothing confirmed one way or the other. And
just so we're clear, Huntsville City is an independent entity, I believe, tied to Nashville.
Yeah,
but it's not like a Nashville 2 necessarily.
Right.
So yeah.
But yeah, we don't know that's the name that has been floated out there. That they're their own entity, but they are affiliated with Nashville. Like I said, we don't know anything official with that. But no, you tip your hat to a guy like Jack Collison, who has really done some tremendous work with Atlanta United, not just obviously with the twos, but with his time within the system. But no, it'll be sad to see him go. You understand, obviously, you want to challenge yourself in your career and career growth and all that kind of stuff. But no, you tip your hat to Jack Collison. Jack, thank you for the last 3.5 years. And can't wait to see where you are next, because that we're going to be banging on your door so you can come and do a 1v1 with us about your new gig when that does happen.
We was talking about it when I saw it get leaked. Not leaked, I shouldn't say that, because Chris put it out as a report. Yeah. When I saw it get posted this morning, it's the thing that sticks out to me, and the thing that was always really cool and evident was, even in losses, you could see with Jack the most proud he was when those kids were out there. And a lot of those kids, I mean, this is the thing about having that pipeline of coaches. He's known these kids for years now, in the same sense that, when Stephen Glass was managing the second team, he had known them for a while. He had been managing them at youth levels. If you bring up a coach from the U17s or U19s, they've known these players. They've built relationships with them. They've watched them grow. He had a lot of very proud parent energy, even when things didn't go perfectly, when those kids got out there and they executed. And the word that he used a lot for his time here was bravery. Mm-hmm. And he wanted the kids to play bravely. They gave up a lot of goals because they wanted the ball. They wanted to press. They didn't want to sit back and try and get out of there with a 1-0 or a 1-1 or a 0-0 draw. They wanted to go score, and they wanted the ball. And that left a really young group of players on the back line exposed a lot against some of these USL teams that really can thrive on the counter and can really punish young players. And
Robot Jarrett finally got taken over for the first time this week. But, going through the timeline, Knicks, they will be the MLS Next Pro team for Nashville. And Jason, this is how I'm looking at it, where Jack is concerned. To build something, it's a unique opportunity. Yes, you're affiliated, but you're your own independent thing. It's a first-year operation, and you get to stay in the southeastern United States. And there's that, to me, is how I'm looking at this, is that it's very rare, Nick, and, Emilio, obviously, pointing out, go to a similar situation could mean something else if that's the case, but I don't quite see this as a similar situation. Yes, it's in the same league, but it's a chance, Nick, to build something from the ground up. You get to sit there and put your stamp on a program from day one.
Right. And so with Collison, he stepped into a role that there were clear boundaries as far as here's what it has been in the past, Here's what we want it to be. This has worked. There's a process in place, right? So you're not writing a book, you're reading a book. And so when you're reading the book, yeah, that's fine and great. Okay, I'm going to follow a recipe. And for all of us home cooks out there who really enjoy, any sort of food prep, there's a huge difference between reading a recipe and then putting your own ingredients in place and adding your own bits of spices and flavorings to make the dish uniquely your own.
Right.
And so that's what Collison, it sounds like, has the opportunity to do here with Rocket City. So he can step in and say, okay, this is stuff that I thought worked at the twos that I can implement here immediately, right? It's stuff that's in my DNA. I can put it in right away. I know the talent types from a coaching perspective I need to look for. I know the programs that we need to put in place. I know what it takes to develop the next generation talent using homegrowns and to provide a pipeline to the first team. This is all stuff I know how to do, but there are things that I picked up along the way that the twos didn't teach me, that someone else didn't teach me, that I learned all on my own, that I can add my own spices and flavorings to this that I think can help kick things up a notch. So that's the difference, in my opinion, on what he's walking into versus what he was doing here. Now, Jarrett and John know far more about the structure of the twos and how that works, from a organizational standpoint and how much latitude the twos manager has in player development and how the process they implement. But it would seem to me that the opportunity to write your own book in this case would be far more attractive, even if you have to go live in Huntsville, because it means you have to live in Huntsville.
Hey now.
But it's one of those things that it's a very attractive opportunity. And look, I joke because if I got to live across from the Space and Rocket Center, you guys would never see me. I would be living over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so Jarrett, I put the question to you, Jarrett.
extended index finger.
Yes.
You're talking to someone who spent multiple summers as a kid, not going to that space camp, but going to the space camp that's at the John C. Stennis Space Center in Louisiana,
where they have the Saturn. We're related, Jarrett. I swear to God. So we're on the line. We're related. Guaranteed. I don't know where. I don't know how.
But that one's also where they John C. Stennis is where they actually test the engines. So it's a really cool and terrifying phenomenon, because when they test the engine, it sounds like Armageddon is upon you, and then it rains shortly thereafter because of the chemicals dispersed in the atmosphere from the engine fuel.
There we go.
They have one of the Saturn rockets there as well. It's really cool.
Okay, so Jarrett, Michael Head with the question this morning, since we're still in opening kickoff territory. For his syllabus today, is there going to be a detailed discussion on a bizarre sport from another Scandinavian country?
I don't have anything lined up. I'm sorry. I tell you what, I'm actually out tomorrow and Friday because I'm on the road.
Yes.
But I am more than happy to start researching for Tuesday to make sure that you have a sport to research for Tuesday morning. I will get to work on that.
There you go. Now, Nick, which space camp did you go to? The one in Huntsville or the one in Louisiana?
I went to Huntsville, Florida. I went to Huntsville.
Right.
I was at the Redstone,
Okay.
and so it was without question one of the most exciting times of my life. I was mission specialist. This is how big of a nerd I am.
Mission specialist Nick Leaf.
I was mission specialist too, and that meant that I got to go do the spacewalk. And so, because there were people like, I want to be the pilot, I want to be the navigator, and I'm like, well, who gets to go on the spacewalk? And they're like, well, that's the mission specialist too. Mission specialist 1 gets to mess with the Canada arm, and the fact that I'm remembering all of this is so stupid, but I can't. It's all flooding back to me.
Nothing wrong with that. I need you to schedule a trip in the next week to Fernbank, because the traveling exhibit at Fernbank right now is space related.
We've been.
Oh, okay, good.
We has been.
Okay, yeah, we has been as well.
Yes.
Same reason.
And so they were like, you get to put on the little spacesuit, and then you get to get into 5 degrees of freedom, which, for those who don't know, it's sort of like a hovercraft with a big chair on it, and it's the closest they can simulate to 0G. And I got to go out and repair, quote unquote, a satellite, and I was just like, you couldn't tell me anything for like a month after that. It's like, I'm sorry, did you repair a satellite the past 2 weeks? I did, and so yeah, it's just it was just beyond spectacular. It was just Space Camp is a must. If you ever get the chance, it's a must.
Even if you're like 37 or 38 years old.
They have, well, I know they have the family stuff. I don't know if it's like the husband wife team can say, hey, look, we're renting a pod and we're doing the adult Space Camp, and John, they have the the G-Force simulator thing as well. So I'm just saying,
Okay.
you get in there, you spin around and whatnot, and
oh yeah,
John throws up.
Bounce from wall to wall and sit there and go go floating and go into the G forces. Yeah, welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. That's why we have
this is God bless it, God rest him. This would be a Mike Leach territory. Well, Space Camp's a lot like college football.
That's right.
But you're bouncing around from place to place. You go off of one wall, you bounce off of it, you figure out how you're going to reorient yourself, and then you go to your next space right there, and you got all these G forces hanging around, zero gravity. Sometimes in the game you just kind of float and you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes you're anchored to the ground, sometimes you're just floating in the air, and it just happens that way sometimes.
Well, see, the real gravity is the Seattle route that's pulling the safety to the middle of the field and opening up the go route.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, what we're here for. That's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, Mike Leach, Space Camp, and Jack Collison.
I would recommend Jack Collison go to the Space and Rocket Center there and really check out the Saturn V rocket exhibit that they have. It's a
big damn rocket. That's all I can call it. It's a big damn rocket.
The facility they house it in, they have like a completely scaled model laying on its end, and so it's broken up into segments under this huge, in this massive facility. That alone, I think, is something that is just spectacular. So, Jack, if you're listening, I would highly suggest you go there and do that. And whenever we eventually come out and bring the cameras, you could talk to us about your experiences at this U.S. Space and Rocket Center.
Yeah, you see now, if you're going to Huntsville, Jack, this is what they need to do with the social media team. They need to take you to Space Camp. They need to take the players that are new to Huntsville and go to Space Camp. That's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Remember, Kickoff Coffee CO, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and use the code SOCCERDOWNHERE15. Get 15% off of your coffee. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com.
The thing is, I can hear in Jack's voice. I can hear in his accent. No, man, I'm not doing that. I'm not. He's not. I can hear in Jack's voice.
Not doing that.
I'm not getting into G-Force Simulator. We're not doing that.
Not doing that, man. Michael Head with a request, Jarrett, when you come back for Tuesday. If you can incorporate surströmming, all the better. And for those of us that don't know what surströmming is and had to look it up while we were waiting to display that, a lightly salted, fermented Baltic Sea herring traditional to Swedish cuisine since at least the 16th century.
Yeah, I've heard of that before. Basically fermented, it's fermented rotten fish.
It's a rotten herring, and it has its own store, surströmming.com. Yeah. And Bam, since we got into Space Camp stuff, Bam doing the public service that he does. The Australian Space Agency, Australian Research and Space Exploration, ARS. I don't know if that relates to levels of success of the Australian program or not, but you've got arses that are doing space missions in Australia. So, bam, I think you win the morning. Sean, well, it's opening kickoff, Sean. You should know this by now. He's making his morning shake, and all he hears is space agency discussions. The opening kickoff is opening kickoff. That is where anything goes, and we talk about whatever's on our mind, and it does go off the rails in the opening segment. That's just par for the course, where we're talking about arses. Or just arse. I think it's just a singular arse. You don't have multiple agencies.
Yeah, I think arse, though, might be the nicest thing an Australian can ever call you.
Yeah, true.
That's a culture that has a very colorful and creative and ambitious language program.
Yes. Yeah. And so Nix, who is spot on with all of this, that Collison to Huntsville allegedly was the segue. So yes, that was where we took the right turn, and that was where it went. Opening blast off brought to us by other individuals. And now Michael says, if you want to be completely ill, go to YouTube to watch people try to eat surströmming. I don't think so. That ain't going to happen. That is not going to happen. And then in related news, Airborne DJ, first thing you read this morning was about the leaking Russian spacecraft at the ISS. That's not good. No, that's not good stuff. But yeah, not good. And you just hope that everybody there can be as safe as possible. Okay.
If there's one place I don't want to leak, it's on a pressurized craft orbiting the Earth.
Unless I'm in a specific room and
yeah, well, not even that, man. Because then, like, eventually, I don't want that. Because then if I'm in, okay, I can go to a different room.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't help me. Like, it doesn't. Because
it could if you're trying to perform something.
It could, theoretically.
Yes. And Sean with an excellent point. Call Tom Hanks. He'll get it fixed. I think. Don't you mean Gary?
Better than calling George Clooney in Gravity.
Yeah, I mean, don't you mean Gary Sinise? I mean, Gary Sinise was just as equal a part of this as Tom Hanks was. Don't know.
Well, I would actually, I would get Jim Lovell as the person where we would find any book with that Jim Lovell had written down, and that's what I'm going to. Tom Hanks can stay at home, make Playtone movies. I want the genuine articles,
the real deal. Yeah, but felt like Bergman for a second. Jim Lovell.
Michael Collins, God rest him, would also have been an option here because that man was one of the bravest human beings on earth. Simply because he was the most isolated human being in the history of mankind at one point. He's orbiting the craft during the Apollo mission when Armstrong lands on the moon with Aldrin. And if something goes wrong on the moon, Collins has like a 3+ day flight back home by himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrifying.
Yes.
Anyway, soccer.
To answer your question, Bam, wants to know if the MLS fixtures are coming out today. It's what he has been hearing. I haven't heard any specific date. Jeff Reuter says that from Jonathan Tannenwald, it'll be published later this month, and that was 2 days ago. So whatever later this month translates into, and MLS Deputy Commissioner Gary Stevenson at the time, when it came to Fox's set of games, said the schedule that Fox was able to put forth really fit well with what we were doing with Apple. So anticipate before the end of the year. So before the end of the year is what we're looking at. And so when it does show up, Bam, we will definitely let you know. So Airborne DJ is seeing the same thing. So if it's coming out today, obviously it's coming out today. We'll obviously talk about it tomorrow, and unless it comes up during the show. But guys, there was soccer yesterday that involved France and Morocco. And Nick, I know that we were all kind of keeping an eye on things, and you had it pegged. If France got something early, then all bets were off. And hey, guess what? France got something early.
I had a feeling that France was going to score early no matter what. the card issues that Morocco ran into in the last game was gonna bite them early, just because anytime you upset a team, that Morocco thrived off of team chemistry, and when you change out any part of that, you're gonna have to have a few moments to sort yourself. France, too explosive, came out, scored within the first 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and then I figured that it would turn into a slog after that, and that I said France is going to have to do one of two things to put goals, in play, put the ball in the back of the net, rather. And that would be, one, you take comically stupid long shots, which they have guys who could do that, or two, you play in a phone booth in the 18, and they selected option two. And they did an exceptional job with that. Morocco did what I thought they were going to do, where they closed down those long passing options. You have guys who were, you had moments where it looked like Mbappe could get on the end of those, and then you have Amrabat, who pulled off one of the best tackles. They're going to be showing the highlight of that tackle on highlight reels for years to come. And
just the overhead still shot belongs in the Sistine Chapel.
I'm telling you, yeah. And Rocco Camiso is over at Fiorentina is just, watching his phone vibrate off the table from big clubs in Europe who want to make a deal. So it's, Giroud was, and this is the thing that Argentina is going to have to be mindful of, is that as much speed as France possess, once they get to the 18 and that ball's pinging around, you have to, all eyes need to go to Olivier Giroud, because he has the ability to just find the ball and pick it out of nowhere. And then Theo Hernandez, who was not even supposed to be a factor in this tournament, showed up and was just, he performed out of his skin. And so if you were a Milan fan, that's me, this is a really, really good tournament for Milan. Obviously no one's going to come knocking on the door for Giroud just because of his age, but Theo Hernandez, proved that I think he's one of the best outside backs in the world at the moment. And then not just that, but you had Rafael Leao for Portugal, who when he had opportunities, balled out of control. And the construction workers are, again, next door doing their thing. God bless my neighbor. She's a nurse, so I think she worked night shifts, so she's probably really hating life right now. But, France, I think the opportunities that France got in this game, and I'll shut up after this, happened because Morocco did not have the clinical finishing that they had against Canada, Belgium, and Portugal. That timely finishing. It wasn't there for them. And when France realized that wasn't happening, they were like, yep, baby, all gas, no brakes. They're not going to have that against Argentina. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, gentlemen, to discuss furthermore. Yes, they did come out, by the way, on fire at halftime, Jason. I will completely agree with that. And I thought they absolutely had it in them to at least tie the game. And then, sadly, that did not happen. But I'm still Morocco, man, baby.
Yes, you are Morocco, man. Jarrett, you look at what Morocco was. And the tackle is gorgeous. The photos that were shown, and then Mbappe trying to sell it like he was, wiped out by a steamroller. Yes, he was, but it was done quite well. But yeah, the photos, if you haven't seen them, just look for the stills of the tackle, whether it's in the sequence or even after the fact, where Amrabat is working his way back the other way, and Kylian Mbappe is grabbing his ankle like somebody stole something, which Amrabat did. But I think you look at what Morocco did in this tournament, Jarrett, and they showed that they weren't there just to be there. They were there to show the rest of the planet that they have advanced and they have a tremendous squad. And frankly, I'm looking forward to the next handful of years where we get to see what's going on with this, with the Moroccan national team and the Atlas Lions. I want to see what the next step is for them. And I'm looking forward to seeing them in 2026. I think now, because we have 11 teams, now that the glass ceiling has been crashed by Morocco, I think 11 teams from Africa will be a part of the 2026 World Cup. I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows in the next 4 years.
It'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see how some of these players move on out of Morocco's national team set up from their clubs, like higher profiles. And this is the kind of thing that we talk about it with. We've talked about it for forever with the women's '99 team about what that meant. That's not a national exclusive thing that can happen in other countries. You can be in a situation where, like, a team like Morocco can capture the hearts of millions, not just in their country, but in their region, on their continent, people of similar cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they can grow, they can impact that country for a generation. And it's really exciting that that's a possibility for them. And I hope they're able to ride that. And as this generation gets older, you look at the next generation coming up, and you can be really positive about what's down the line for them.
Yeah, Nick's to the point. Senegal, Egypt, and Morocco in 26 is going to be fun. David, I hope you're right, because it would end up being Luka Modric's last match for his national team when you have Croatia and Morocco in the third place match. We always, though, have that fear that a third place consolation match, you're just going to get guys a little bit of run. You're going to get folks who haven't had the chance to play a chance to play. And I want to know, does Luka Modric come in the 60th, give you 30, and take his, and take a tip of the hat when the match is over and get his victory lap? That's what worries me traditionally about these consolation games, is that they won't invest fully, Jarrett, in what we're looking at there for a third place game.
Has Luka said anything yet about this being his goodbye?
No. I think what we're doing is we are assuming that since he's 37, that he won't be around until he's 41.
41, like that's. I mean, that's an old man at that point. I don't know. I'm not the person to ask about this, and I'm sure there's someone we could ask about. What's the makeup of the Croatian youth side?
Yeah.
Do you if Luka Modric is still going at 41? Do you give him the opportunity? Do you say, hey man, we'll put the last spot on the roster for you? Come be a part of it, or does he join as part of the staff or something because it's. I know we've gotten the notice from Messi about I'm excited. My last World Cup game is going to be in a final.
Yeah.
Is Luka just? It feels like a very Modric kind of thing though for him not to say anything and for him to just kind of quietly bow.
Yeah.
Take the final bow. It feels like his kind of vibe.
True. But I mean, Nick, we look at it and do they put Luka Modric in some kind of cryogenic chamber, and really he's only 28? That's the thing that I'm always concerned about with these athletes, because you look at Luka Modric right now at 37, and he is still just ridiculously talented at 37. And you wonder what the next 4 years are going to be like. But no, we haven't heard what the future is or / could be for Luka Modric right now.
I think he's done. I think it's done. This is a change. This tournament is going to be remembered for a great many things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we stick to soccer, if we stick to that.
What?
Exactly. I know. We never do that anyway. But I think that part of it is that this is a changing of the guard. And just as for Croatia, they're going to have a situation like when they lost Pavel Nedved, and they had to figure out how to be competitive after the talisman of Pavel Nedved stepped away. They're going to be facing a similar situation now. Now the difference is that you have a ton of talent that is playing in Syria, really, but the future's bright for Croatia. I mean, there's no reason on earth Croatia should be as good as they are, and yet they keep fielding very, very competitive teams. Now, they lose an orchestrator, somebody who could just guide all the players around them and really pull the strings. I think he has one more Euro in him. I'm going to completely agree with Jason Nix and say one more Euro for Modric to try to get something.
Yeah.
But I don't see another World Cup in his future. I just think that the way that the game has progressed, I could see him on a coaching staff maybe if they want to call him up as a reserve player, and he's open to that, then perhaps. But he's somebody who, with what he's experienced in life, what he's experienced at the club level, the unprecedented success he's had, I don't know if there's much more for him to prove in that space. But who knows? He may feel like he has one more and is willing to take a back seat. But I mean, I'll tell you what it is. Michael Head says Croatia has a population less than Metro Atlanta, less than the water over there. I think it's essentially the thing that makes the Marines successful, and that is a sense of shared hardship.
Yeah,
they've all of them are within a generation of absolute insanity and war, and they understand the stakes of needing to put something together. I'm going to hit mute because these guys are right by my window. You guys pick it up.
Well, to Nick's point, I mean, it's not just Croatia. It's a lot of. I mean, we've seen this with a lot of the countries that were part of the Eastern Bloc, former Yugoslavian countries, former Czechoslovakia.
Yeah,
a lot of these countries. There is a profound amount of hardship that a lot of these guys who are now in their playing age, they were kids when all this was happening. It's all they've ever known.
Yeah, North Macedonia, Bosnia Herzegovina, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
yeah. It's all they've ever known, and they are hardened by it. It's how it goes. It's not easy. It's not pretty. It's not always fun or fair. But it's kind of the lot in life that they were handed, and they're tough for it, and they are, and they're proud of what they are and their country and their cultures, especially when you start nuancing it outside of just countries and individual cultures as well, because we saw that boil over a bit, in the last group stage game where Switzerland has a number of players that were refugees.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't just a matter. It isn't only a matter of, oh, well, it's somebody's, it's somebody's country. Like, well, you have different cultures within those countries. It can get really messy and really nuanced, and there's a lot of pride on that. So I think he is not wrong at all. That there's a lot of pride, and there's a lot of golden generation energy there that maybe we don't talk about enough with Croatia, because we spend so much time waiting. We spent so much time waiting for Belgium's golden generation to get over the hump.
And Belgium did too.
Yeah, and look, I get it. They made a third place game. They made a semifinal. They never got over that hump though to win a final.
Mm-hmm. And
so
now,
shout out to Croatia for what they did, because they made it to a final. They made it into a semifinal. They've been scrappy for a long time. With some of these veteran guys getting long in the tooth, did they move on from here? Is this it? I don't know. We'll see.
2 days from now, on Saturday, and Jarrett, this is because you are not going to be with us tomorrow, and
correct.
We'll talk about it, obviously, tomorrow as well, but I want to kind of start the discussion. We'll go ahead and play it forward a little bit. Third place game is Saturday at 10 a.m., Croatia, Morocco. Right now, your juice boxes have, in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, Croatia at a plus 139. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 246. And you can tell, and I can guarantee you that neither side wants to go an extra 30 plus PKs. Morocco is a plus 202 to win it in 90 minutes. Right now, 10 a.m., and I know that a lot of you in the timeline are going back and forth about going to the Roxy for the season ticket holder event and for the viewing party for the World Cup final. Argentina and France. France is a slight favorite right now and I would anticipate that those numbers would go back and forth over the next couple of days. But right now in the composite, France is a plus 179 to win in 90 minutes. Argentina is a plus 186. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 206. So then let me ask you first, Nick, and this is what I'm also checking. I'm also checking your folks behind you that are your audio students this morning as I ask you this question. What does your gut tell you about the third place game? Do you anticipate the starting lineups being, full bore starting lineup, chasing after a title? Does Luka Modric start? Does he come in the 60th? Morocco, we figure they're going to want to try to finish third. What are your anticipations of the third place game before we get into the title game on Sunday morning?
Thankfully, they've stepped away from the door. They were like
back away from the neighbor, sir.
The call was coming from inside the house.
Yeah, the yard guys showed up right as the construction guys are going too, and so the yard guys were parked right next to the window I'm at, and just they seem to know. It's like a psychic thing. They're like, someone's on a call right now, and so yeah, but. No, I think Morocco is absolutely going to go for it. I think Morocco says, look, this is our opportunity to really, look back at the U.S. in the first tournament, the very, very, very first tournament. They finished third, right? The U.S., no matter what, hell, high water, no matter what happens with the program, they could say, you know what, we finished third at the World Cup once. It doesn't matter if it was the beginning. We finished there. You did not. Ha, 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 ha. I think Morocco's going to have that energy where they're going to say, you know what, we're still in this tournament. No, we're not going to win it. But this is an opportunity to really continue our mission of hoisting African football to a higher stage and show the world that we belong just as much as you do. I think they feel it like as a calling. This is more of a swan song maybe for Modric if it's not the if he doesn't do a Euro or another World Cup, they're going to want to show well for him. But from an esprit de corps standpoint, I think it's either going to be big Moroccan energy or it's going to be a very, very tight affair with Croatia sneaking out in the end. It's going to be one of the two. But I still want Morocco to grab that third place spot.
And I think you're not alone in that, Nick. I think that a lot of folks, because of what we saw from Morocco in the tournament, are looking for them, to give that same energy one more time and go out with a third place finish. Jarrett, what's your gut on the third place game?
I think it's hard to peg. I think Morocco's going to go for it, but then how much does Morocco go for it? Because you have a team that plays at their best when they sit and they're defensive. When they're that kind of team, like how much do you go for it where you don't get out of your comfort zone against a Croatian team that is just as happy to sit back? If you decide you want to be aggressive, Morocco will say, yeah, sure, live your best life. I got you. We'll just wait for you to screw up. And then Luka Modric activates kill mode. And then you're wondering why there's a hole in your chest. That being said, like if this is Luka Modric's last World Cup game as well, the emotions are going to be high literally all over. It's going to be a pro-Moroccan crowd. But if it's Luka's last game, one of the best players of this generation, there's going to be a lot of emotion all over the place. The electricity for a third, this might be one of the most electric third place games we've seen.
Yeah.
In a fun way.
And that's, what is it going to look like? That's the biggest question there. But now, since Jarrett, you're not going to be here, I wanted to kind of get into the title game here a little bit. Sean and David do not share our optimism for our Moroccan brethren. Sean is going 3-0 Croatia, and David is going 2-1 Croatia with the dreaded driving slipper lock of the week, but in extra time, 2-1 Croatia. Then David, I think they get them back, frankly. I think they get whomever back from cards. It's just the one match suspension. So I think that they should be playing as close to full strength as possible. So championship, okay, Bam's going 1-0 Morocco, 93rd minute winner. But when you're looking at the title game, Jarrett, trying to determine who is going to be the best team in the world, Argentina and France, what are you looking for?
I am looking at a French team that cannot defend anything or anyone in existence. Argentina has given up the fewest shots on goal in the tournament. And I think that you are in for if I'm taking the over on goals scored in this. I don't know how you feel. I don't know how Nick feels. I don't know how the Twitch pitch feels. I'm taking the over on goals scored because France can't defend.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue.
Morocco, like I said yesterday to in our discussions, like it's a stupid, cheesy thing to say, but it really felt like Morocco did everything but put the ball in the back of the net yesterday. And I know that's a really stupid. That's like see the ball, hit the ball. That's like up there with one of the dumbest things you can say.
That was a good broadcast cliche, Jarrett. That was good.
The game is about blocking and tackling, that sort of thing. All that jazz. All of that being said, they did everything but put the ball in the back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
They hit the post. They forced some impressive saves. They forced some last-minute defending off the line. I think Argentina's not going to put the ball in the back of the net a time or three.
Mm-hmm.
And Argentina's been great defensively. They have tapped into the Italian bloodline. Those Italian-blooded defenders have been spending some time at the Jedi Temple and reinvigorating themselves, getting ready for this. I think France is going to be able to find stuff just because you have some really dynamic players on that French side. They're going to be able to find opportunities. Can they convert those opportunities? That's a great question. Let's find out. But I will be very interested to see, if Argentina can keep them off the board completely, and how does Hugo Lloris have a just biblical game in him, because he might need it.
Because Debu has had several of those biblical games, Nick, and your early thoughts on the last game of the World Tournament. What's your gut tell you so far?
As much as this game is going to come down to Messi and those hamstrings, if he's able to, what condition he's going to be in. But honestly, we know the role he's going to play. I think the critical guys for Argentina are going to be Molina and DePaul over on the right side, because they are going to have to tackle the blistering runs of Teo Hernandez, right? Yep. And his ability to affect the attacking side of the game, and his ability to feed the ball to Fofana and Mbappe. And if you can stifle that at all, then you start to turn France into a bit more, to being a bit more one-dimensional, meaning that the ball has to start being put specifically through Griezmann and then feeding up to Giroud. And if you can, and of course, you have Dembele on the other side. Yeah, enjoy that. But, but I would rather take my chances with a trio of Dembele, Griezmann, and Giroud than Mbappe, Giroud, and Griezmann. The Mbappe factor in his ability to really open up the game with his speed it's very problematic. But Argentina, I think, has the defense necessary to stifle that. And the big difference that France is going to have to deal with is that they're going to have to deal with a very, very dangerous attack. They can score in the 18. They can score from distance. It doesn't matter how many defenders you throw at Messi, he's going to find the open man. This is something completely different than France has had to deal with this tournament, and Morocco pinned France back. As much of a hard time as they had finding the back of the net, Morocco pinned France back for a large chunk of that second half. And really, it was, one of the best goalkeeping games of the tournament by Lloris to keep that ball out, and the post helped, and occasional weird bendings of the laws of physics helped France, but you know I'm sorry if Argentina's firing on all cylinders. They have the defense, they have the keeper. If they can avoid card trouble early, that's going to be the key. If they can avoid card trouble early, this might turn into something really stupid. If Argentina gets into card trouble early, if they fall asleep, which they've been known to do, then France can make this a very, very tight game. But the ability to lose falls more on Argentina and mistakes they would make over anything I think France could do really, really well. Because from what I saw with France was if you stifle the passes of 10 yards or more, you can do sort of what the New England Patriots did to the St. Louis Rams in that Super Bowl, which is, hey, look, between the 20s, we're going to let, that's what Bill Belichick said, between the 20s, we're going to let St. Louis do whatever they want to do. They want to go long, they want to go short, it doesn't matter. Let them do whatever they're going to do. But when they get within the 20, we're going to shut them down. And I think that Argentina can do that almost as good as what Morocco was able to do. But by being able to attack infinitely better than Morocco, France won't be able to commit the same numbers forward that they did against my Atlas Lions. And with that, I turn it back over to you guys to give me your thoughts. And it was Chavarria, by the way, David, who missed the last game, who was critical. So Chavarria should be back, and he got the 2 yellow cards within like a minute and a half of each other. So Chavarria will be back, and Morocco should be full strength.
Yeah. Jarrett, do you turn into a pumpkin now with your meetings?
Yeah, and like I think that was Jimmy Johnson who once said, like, you can do whatever you want between, like, from 20 to 20, but when you get in the once you get in the red zone, it's game over. Like,
Yeah.
you want the ball from between the 20s, do whatever you want. The second you get in my red zone, it's over.
Yards don't matter.
Playtime's over.
Yeah, yards do not matter. Jarrett, we will see you on Tuesday.
Yes, you will.
Be good. Now, so Jarrett Smith, everybody. But, yeah, Nick, I mean, yards don't matter in football. And this is what you have to impress upon folks who sit there and they look at the spread and they're going, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. Look what they're doing. But yards don't matter. Last time I checked, you got to get into that section of the field that's over at the edges that has painted with nicknames or has checkerboards or whatever. And if you get all the yards in the world, and you don't get into that little 10-yard space that's not marked off by yards, but marked off by words and pretty pieces of art, then you're not going to be very successful.
No, and when it comes to France, what France proved to me against Morocco, and Morocco, one of the best defensive teams of the tournament, right? Without question.
Mm-hmm.
When France, I thought that Morocco, just because I said that France would have to score, either via playing through a phone booth or playing stupid long distance shots, I really thought Morocco was going to take away the ability for France to play in a phone booth. I just thought that there's no way that Mbappe is one of the best wide open players I think I've ever seen. I mean, he's right up there with prime Ronaldo as far as what he can do in space to really punish you. I think but there have been times where when he's presented with traffic, Mbappe says, I'm going to do this on my own rather than utilize the talent around me.
Right.
And I thought that would be very problematic for him. I thought that Griezmann, who has at times checked out of games when he's not receiving the ball a certain amount, I thought that would be a problem as well. And the front line would really be they would have to essentially rely on Giroud or nothing.
Yeah.
Unless they could do the comic stupid long shots. And they proved me wrong on that. Now they're going against another really, really good defensive team in Argentina. But where France is at their best is when the front four of Giroud, Dembele, Griezmann, and Mbappe are able to get forward and then be supported on the wing by Hernandez coming flying through, and he'll occupy the space that he's not just a guy who's going to post up on the outside and hurl crosses in. He's somebody who will make an incisive run and put shots on frame. If you stifle that, you start to make France very one-dimensional. And it's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to completely different to implement it. But, Tagliafico is going to be, obviously critical. Otamendi, if he's going to, his ability to, and Romero, their ability to mark Giroud out, what can, what kind of role will McAllister play? Messi, we know what he's going to do. Alvarez, can he find the back of the net? And really, France has to go to the bench for any reason,
right,
the game immediately just lurches toward Argentina because of the injury issues they've had. You can tell me that, a certain French striker is available. I don't know about that, but as far as this team goes, the reserves of France they're not there. God bless them. They hit the injury bus on the way to the tournament. Argentina has a better bench. The main issue is, can they play cleanly enough for the first 20-25 minutes to avoid early card accumulation? And if they can do that, it's Argentina's game to lose.
So then, question from the Airborne DJ: how much different would this be with Benzema and Pogba?
Radically different. Benzema alone would be radically different. You're talking about then, up top for France. Are they still going to run with a 4-2-3-1? Giroud has been electric. There's no doubt about it. But you're talking about a World Player of the Year, coming in at striker. That's a very, very, very different thing. I think the difference with Pogba has skill, Pogba has ability, but France is not a team that necessarily needs that. France is a team that needs people to keep their heads in order to be competitive, and chemistry is a big thing. And right now, I think France's chemistry is great, but I don't know how that chemistry would be upended with Pogba in the lineup. Obviously, Pogba has proven in the past that he's been an exceptional player for the national team, but it's a different game with Benzema. With Pogba, it goes to a knife's edge, and that's what makes France France. It's not a cop-out answer. It's more that France has been known to have obscenely talented lineups that one slight change can throw everything into a lurch. Some of the classic French teams through the early to mid-2000s managed by Raymond Domenech, he would contact tarot card readers to help with his lineup selection, if that gives you any idea about the weirdness of France.
Yes.
So with Benzema, yes, it would be a very different situation. But, then you're talking about having a bit of a stronger bench. If Pogba's there, even if Pogba's coming off the bench, I know, which is stupid, but if Pogba's coming off the bench, you could change the complexion of the midfield entirely in one move. With Benzema starting and having Giroud come off and coming off the bench in the second half, again, you're changing things entirely. Because of the absence of those guys, with the lack of quality subs on France's bench, you're asking for miracles. You're asking to turn Coke into Pepsi, find the lost car keys, and maybe turn water into wine. So, the issue, Sean, with France is that they have an all-star team up top. They have an exceptionally good keeper, but that back line hasn't proven to me that they can stop a cold. I mean, Morocco lived in their 18, and if they had finished those chances, we're talking about a very different thing today. But I'm sorry, France's ability to prevent anyone from living in front of Hugo Lloris is I don't know. If England is more clinical, again, then you're talking about England, Morocco in the semi. If you were talking about if Morocco is able to be clinical on, even a third of their chances that they had yesterday, then you're talking something very different today. But yes, goals do change games, but I don't know. France's defense scares the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
And look, as a Milan guy, I would love to see Theo Hernandez and Olivier Giroud hoist the cup, in back-to-back tournaments and Milan supremacy and banter all the way to the bank on Twitter. But I think that Argentina possesses the right mix of defense and attacking power and the ability to hold the ball in a way that Morocco couldn't. And Morocco still proved to be more than a handful. There were a lot of people who were very shocked at Morocco's play yesterday and say, oh, wow, I thought they were kind of a fluke. They're really holding their own against France. Like, well, we've been trying to tell you all tournament that these boys could play. Argentina, again, their biggest issue is going to be card trouble, I think.
Looking at the numbers, and I went to the over-unders in the juice boxes. Over-under at 2.5 is a plus 147. 3, your over-under is a plus 290. Over-under at 3.5 is a plus 367. 4 is a plus 3.5 is plus 367. Your over-under at 4. So let's say 2-2. A 2-2 match with Argentina and France. It skyrockets to a plus 792 if you're looking at a 2-2 match with those two teams. 4.5 gets you to plus 882. But, yeah, from 3.5 at plus 367 to 4 at a plus 792 for that match.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to have to be because I think Argentina scores first. I think they put 2 up first. And I think Argentina does what Argentina has done a couple of times in this tournament, which is fall asleep. And France has the firepower to put themselves, in to Sean Vergara's point, Mbappe is a game changer. Argentina will fall asleep, and then Mbappe will, and that side of, Theo Hernandez will just launch forward and we'll put 1 or 2 on the board very quickly, and then Argentina's going to have to go into panic mode and to try to put the game back in their hands. So again, I think it's 2-0 early. I can absolutely see a 2-2 game going to extra time. It's going to be this one's going to be stupid. This one has big stupid energy written all over it.
Mm-hmm. No, and David's question, he's not a juice box guy. I'm not either, but I understand. Okay. So let me go here. So Sean says, you think Argentina would blow a 2-goal lead?
I think that Argentina possesses the ability to fall asleep. That is my argument that I put forward.
Okay.
I'll say that there have been a couple times in this tournament, like especially against the Netherlands. So if we go to the Netherlands game, and then you had Argentina scoring first at 35. Then they scored again in the 73rd. That was the Messi penalty, and then Weghorst was at the 83rd minute, right? And then you had Dumfries at 128. So yes, Argentina can blow a 2-goal lead. They have the ability to, they can do it. And it's not because Argentina suddenly decides they don't know how to play. It's because Argentina is a team that thrives off of confidence on the ball. They thrive on they know what they have. But the downside is that sometimes that can make you kind of get a little sleepy.
Yeah.
Against Croatia, they brought a different energy. They said, "Hey, look, we don't want to make the same mistake that we made against the Netherlands." And so, as a result of that, I felt they really put the screws down on Croatia. But this is not Croatia we're talking about. We're talking about teams that have very dynamic players who are very explosive and can, and if the ball bounces really stupid in the box, Olivier Giroud's one of the best there is at finding the back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
If you press too far forward and there's a transitional play, you have that combination of Mbappe and Dembele who can outrun just about anybody to feed a ball to Giroud to be in a dangerous position. You have Griezmann who can, who has the ability to play gritty. He has the ability to, be dynamic and explosive. So, if you leave the wing open, you have Theo Hernandez who can be explosive. Again, there's enough explosive talent on France that if Argentina goes to sleep, even for a moment, they can do that. Do they make the same mistake that they did against the Netherlands? I don't necessarily think so. But the ability for them to do that is there. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Probably very awkwardly and in a very clunky manner. But the Croatia game showed me that they kind of got that ruthlessness back.
Mm-hmm.
Debu was telling people, hey, look, we're not letting anything through. Right? So I think that back line kind of became keenly aware that, hey, look, we can't be stupid here. If we're stupid and we get sloppy, Messi's not leaving here with what he wants. So they seem to be on a mission from God at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why I think that Argentina is going to go up too early. And how they handle that is going to be the differentiator between extra time and it falling into France's hands or going to penalties and something really stupid happening.
Yeah, David and the juice box idea. I'm not a juice box guy. I'm not either. But I understand its importance when it comes to sport. Why would you wager 3 versus 3.5 or 2.5, giving up a spread for a chance at no bet? I know, yeah. And that's one of the things that confuses me too, David, why you would bet on an even number instead of over-under of 3, which means that you're blowing basically 2 goals on either side of you. You sit there, and it's like if you go to the 0.5, then the margins are closer for you. No, I would never bet. I would never have any kind of a juice box on an even number. I would always go to a 0.5. It's almost like the feeling that you get when you go to the pump and put gas in your tank, where it's 239.9. It's not 240. It's not 249.9. It's not 250. It's the psychological notion of, okay, I'm paying a little less. I'm not paying $2.50 for that gallon of gas. I'm paying $2.49.9. I'm not paying $2. I'll pay $1.99.9, but I'm not paying $2 for it. So that's how I look at it. I'm always looking at things in the 0.5s. I'm not looking at them at the even numbers when it comes to juice boxes. But that's just, like I said, that's just my approach at it. So, but I mention the even numbers just because it's a part of the column. Than the column inches that they take up when it comes to laying out all of your juice box numbers. But yeah, I'm always focused on the 0.5s instead of sitting there and going, yeah, by the way, well, and to your point, if you wager the even number, you're sitting there and kind of hedging your bet to where you think you're not going to lose money. So that might be why you want to bet on an even number. You sit there, you think it's going to be a 2-1 match. Then if the Velvet Driving Slipper lock of the week is there for you at 3, and you sit there and okay, I evened out. Everything was fine. That way you're kind of hedging your juice boxes at that point. But no, math doesn't make sense. But yeah, traditionally, any kind of a juice box determination when you want to empty your wallet's based on a 0.5. I would go with 0.5s unless you want to hedge your bet and just go with an even number. So obviously, Nick will talk a little bit more about it tomorrow with what folks want to talk about when it comes to the World Cup competition. Michael had brought up this topic this morning where soccer teams, and this is from our friends. I did not read the Athletic article, Michael, but I did find it in Front Office Sports. Soccer teams, and this is their copy, will profit handsomely from their players' presence in November's World Cup. FIFA announced it would pay out $209 million in total to clubs over the course of the World Cup. Teams will receive $10,000 per player per day while the player is involved in the Qatar-based tournament. Payments will go to all clubs the player has played for in the 2-year period prior to the World Cup. FIFA gave out $8,530 per player per day in the 2018 World Cup, on top of $10 million to each country whose team made the group stage. 2018 payments went to more than 400 clubs across 63 countries. Manchester City earned $5 million from its players' participation in the 2018 tourney in Russia. The Premier League team will have 17 players in Qatar. Chelsea will have 20. And Michael brought this up because Atlanta United will get a part of that payday, and they will be receiving money from FIFA because of Thiago Almada. You like apples, Nick?
I like money.
I mean,
I like money. Money works for me.
I know, but I did not know that there was a recompense for players that for the clubs, for players. You're in an off season, and oh, by the way, hey, you got players playing, so tell you what, we're gonna kind of reimburse you for their time.
Well, in some business, and certainly in the military, you hear this term that gets kicked around, right? It's called a force multiplier, right? So if you have you have a Marine, right? A Marine with a rifle, okay. Well, now you give the Marine and a rifle grenades, right? Now you've added to their capabilities. Now, if you give them a rocket launcher, right, a tank, and what does it take to get the most bang for your buck? And for Atlanta, with Almada's inclusion to the Argentine side, let's say he does get $100K for the team does get $100K for showing up in the tournament, and him being there, great, found money. But with the profile that, for the very limited time that he's had, where he looked really good in the process, a team's going to come along and be like, hey, let's talk some turkey on that kid. That you're talking about something that not only do you have found money, that the force multiplier of Argentina making the final, his valuation is going to skyrocket just by even being on the bench. It's going to skyrocket. So, and yeah, David, it's going to be interesting to see how this falls into play. Does Atlanta United just get to pocket that money?
I think so.
Does the league, like any good mob boss, take their cut? And it's being the single entity operation that it is. So, which I have no problem with the single entity operation, by the way, because that's why MLS was probably one of the more economically sound ventures to survive the pandemic. So, absolutely, I think they should probably get a little bit of a cut. But it's going to be weird to see how league rules handle that. I would like to, and this is why teams like Atlanta United hire lawyers back to back to run the operation, because of the Hammurabi's code of rules of engagement that the league passes down. This kind of wham, and bam that how this gets factored in.
Yes. According to Transfermarkt, the current market value, and this is as of as 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks ago, before the World Cup, Thiago Almada had a market value of €15 million. I'm guessing that's going to go up a little bit from the 5 weeks ago, where he was listed at €15 million, and now he's getting to hang out with Lionel Messi and perform for his country in the world competition to determine the world's best. I think it's going to be a little higher than 15.
Yeah, you saw that with Italy in 2006, that if, before the tournament, I don't think any of the players on the team played outside of Italy. And then after that, Cannavaro went to Real Madrid. You had players going to Barcelona. You had, players starting to cycle all over the place, because everybody wants a piece of that. Everyone wants to be able to say, we have World Cup champion player X on our team. Right. And you're going to have the initial group that gets the A++ players, right? So when let's say, for the sake of argument, that it is Argentina, and Messi says, okay, I'm done with PSG. I'm going to go play for
Intermas FC.
Yeah. I'm going to go play for those guys down there in South Florida. Then you're going to have all those other guys. You're going to have Debu. You're going to have, his valuation is going to get really stupid. What's going to happen with McAllister's value going to skyrocket? Is Alvarez's, Papa Gomez, known for punching a couple of people in the face, is his value going to go back up? What about Fernandez? How is that going to work? It's Romero, Molina, all their values should go up because of this. Meanwhile, when you look at France, for AC Milan, who's going to come knocking on the door for Theo Hernandez, right? Mbappe's value is Mbappe's value. It's going to be a half billy by the time it's done.
Yeah.
Does Griezmann refine his value again? What about Dembele? It all skyrockets. Even the guys who are on the bench, you're going to start hearing a name like, they're going to hear Axel Disasi, and you're going to start, Mandanda. These guys, these names are going to start popping up, and they're going to be worth more money than they were, 4.5 weeks ago, just by being on the bench in this tournament. So it's kind of wild how all of that plays out and how that affects valuation. Even if you don't touch the ball on television in the tournament, it's wild how it affects valuation.
You're the 23rd, you're the
John, you're muted.
I am not muted. I am not. Bite your tongue, sir. I'm not.
John, I think you're muted, bud.
Nuh-uh.
No, you're not muted?
No.
How about this? Somebody in the chat, can you hear me or can you hear John?
I think you can hear us both. I think we're fine. But, no, go ahead and, okay, Nick, Bam says he can hear us both.
That's something on my end. Then John is not muted, and it's my technical issue that's a problem.
Wow. That's a first.
How about them apples?
Wow.
Deal with that, Nick. I'm going to log out and log back in.
Okay.
All
right. So Nick's going to
show
log
you guys.
out. Yeah, there you go. I don't know, David, if it is going to impact the NWSL. I think we should transcribe my statements, David. I think that's how it works. But I don't know if the NWSL will get their financial recompense as well, just because of the transitive property of players. So let's try this round too. Nick,
there we go.
Okay. So Bam says, just wait till the MLS follows Australia and announces the next 3 years of MLS Cup finals will be played in Los Angeles. Central venue, and we'll make it Los Angeles. Okay, how about that? Fantastic. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I know. We've got gossip, rumor, and innuendo this morning. With folks moving in directions and folks being courted, because it is courting season, because you're trying to get to you're trying to get players, because the January window is 2 weeks away, and the Endrick transaction is official. The picture has been taken. So at 16, he has been signed. He will go from Palmeiras to Real Madrid, but not until 2024 when he turns 18. So that picture has been making the rounds this morning. Manchester United set to make an inquiry about the availability of Benfica's striker Gonzalo Ramos, although manager Erik ten Hag has been told that it's not certain a striker will arrive in January. Chelsea not looking to bring forward their plans to sign Christopher Nkunku from RB Leipzig in the summer, despite the injury, that season-ending injury to Armando Broja. There is, quote, and this is from Ben Jacobs, CBS Sports on the Twitters. There is a very real possibility Dusan Vlahovic will leave Juve in 2023 with a January exit not being ruled out. Chelsea or among clubs who are in contact with his agent.
Yeah, if UEFA elects to drop the hammer, and considering that they dropped the hammer on Milan for financial fair play issues, there's no way you cannot drop the hammer on Juve for cooking the books, right? I mean, Milan just overspent, but if Juve has been cooking the books, you have to ban them from Champions League. You have to. And whether Serie A docks them 30 points or relegates them or whatever, that's to be decided. But players want to be on the largest stages. They don't care. They'll care about the shirt. Yeah, I grew up cheering for this team. But when you start getting older, you're like, I need to maximize my earning potential, and that typically means Champions League. So yeah, Vlahovic, Chiesa, all of these guys are going to be looking for new homes, and that is going to be very, very interesting for a few people, namely, Weston McKennie, and there have been rumors of Christian Pulisic going to Juve. I've heard that that people want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's been floated out there, but I don't know if Juve can afford that right now. So you might start to see an exodus up in Turin of players who are leaving the old lady because of potential Champions League ban and any other punishment that may get handed down from Serie A. But this is not the same situation that Juve had when they were relegated for Calciopoli, where you had these group of stalwarts who said, nope, we are staying with the team even in relegation to get it lifted back up. That doesn't exist now, and so the number of players who will want to exit is probably going to keep going up. We should be hearing more of this in the coming days, especially with the January window approaching.
And other folks that could be on the move, keep an eye. And once again, we always sit there and say, when we mention the 3 and the 4 letter paper, take the information at your own peril. Chelsea face competition for Borussia Dortmund's Youssoufa Moukoko from Man U and Liverpool. Germany striker is 18, but he will not be signed to sit on the bench. Borussia Dortmund hope that Moukoko's relationship with Edin Terzic will help convince the forward, who's out of contract next summer, to sign a new deal in December, because English and Spanish clubs are ready to move in January. That's from Fabrizio Romano. Real Madrid interested in signing Cody Gakpo. Everybody is. To succeed Karim Benzema. That's the thought pattern for them. Gareth Southgate expected to hold talks with the English FA, asked to make a quick decision about his future as he considers whether to stay on in his role. That's from the 4-letter paper. As we say, once again, take the information at your own peril. Leicester City could be willing to pay as much as €45 million for Unahi from Angers. Although Barcelona had been watching the Moroccan midfielder, Unahi's had another tremendous tournament, and his value is definitely going to be going through the roof. Speaking of Morocco midfielder Sofiane Amrabat says he is proud to be linked with a number of high-profile clubs following his performances at the World Cup, but has respect for current club Fiorentina. That comes from our friends at 90 Minutes, Nick.
Oh, lifestyle is important. I don't know if how many people have been to Florence, but all right, Bam, catch some sleep, man. Apparently he's 2:30. It's already tomorrow. The world cannot end today because it's already tomorrow in Australia. Exactly. So yep, Bam, take care, man. But living in Florence would be a dream. My God, it's insanely beautiful. The weather's phenomenal. The food is just spectacular. It's the dream. But Amrabat saying all the right things. Rocco Camiso, he would put that money to use.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that he would like to do with that money. So it's a matter of time before he gets transferred out. He's going to say the right things, but I guarantee you Rocco's already taking a look around and be like, well, I could upgrade this, I could buy that. And Rocco knows how to find players. Fiorentina has been finding players and moving players for a long time. That's not the issue. The issue is always infrastructure with that team. If they had elevated infrastructure, they could probably be more competitive. Rocco said it. Everybody who's owned that team has said it. And yet the city of Florence will not upgrade the facilities for that team.
Yeah.
So if they move Amrabat for a decent amount of money, then maybe he could sink some of that cash into places that might be able to help the team over the long term. But not just going player for player. But it sounds like Amrabat saying the right things, especially by the city itself.
Portugal for João Felix being offered to Premier League clubs, as he wants to leave Atletico Madrid in January, Man City, Man U, Arsenal, and Villa potential destinations. That's from the four-letter paper.
Mm-hmm.
Man U and Arsenal seem the most likely options. Atletico willing to listen to offers of more than €100 million, £86 million. That's from AS. Ten Hag has been promised massive funds to rebuild his squad, despite plans by the Glazer family to sell. That's from the three-letter paper. Manchester United also working on signing Denzel Dumfries from Inter Milan, which could open the door for Barcelona to sign Diogo Dalot. That's from Sport in Spanish. So
how can Barcelona afford it? Barcelona can't afford to sign a ham sandwich.
This is what we're saying.
They can't afford to sign anything. They can't afford to sign, like, they're borrowing ballpoint pens. Like, they can't afford to go to.
I got ballpoint pens here in the office if they want them.
For the right price. I'm just saying. But get Dumfries out of Inter. That'd be great.
Looking at a number of right backs also, but a move for them would depend on Wan-Bissaka leaving the club. That's from Sky. Liverpool target Enzo Fernandez. He's had an average tournament. Will not be leaving Benfica unless an interested party meets the Argentina midfielder's release clause of €120 million, £103 million. Fulham want to sign Arsenal's Portugal right back Cedric Soares in January. They'll also attempt to sign Yuri Tielemans, meaning Arsenal, from Leicester, but believe a move is most likely when he's out of contract in the summer. Brazilian defender Luizão has arrived in England for a medical and will sign with West Ham when his deal with Sao Paulo runs out. That's from the four-letter paper.
Mm-hmm.
Ajax have agreed to let Netherlands defender Daley Blind leave the club on a free in January. English winger Samuel Eiling Jr. signed a 4-year extension at Juve with his current deal set to expire in the summer. This is from Gianluca Di Marzio. So the 19-year-old agrees to a 4-year contract extension with Juve.
Yeah, good for them. Are they actually going to play him? That's the question.
Yeah,
because Allegri does not trust youth talent. So he's a big believer in the apprenticeship system of sending young players down to like City for a few years to marinate. And before they realized that it was a really stupid move, and then let him go for nothing. So, why is this player not developing? I don't know, because you put him down with like Cittadella instead of playing him against Ajax. I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
This is crazy to me.
Semantics in the argument, sir.
Yeah. So but look, this is what happens in non-World Cup years is that a team will look and identify a couple of players that they want, and they'll hyper-focus on it, and they're going to be willing to overspend. What happens in a World Cup year is that you get access to to bypass your scouts in a way and look at a whole laundry list of players from destinations you would have never considered and said, well, that American kid looks all right. Damn.
I know.
Okay, well, I mean, it's worked a couple of other places, right? So why don't we bring him in? Morocco, let's go. These guys are incredible. Let's go raid the Moroccan national team.
Hey, who knew that they actually played football and did it well?
It's really crazy.
Barca interested in Boca Juniors midfielder Alan Varela, but Ajax and Benfica have also been in talks over signing the 21-year-old who could be available for €15 million.
Yeah, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to be you for a minute there, John.
Yeah.
And remember Wimpy from Popeye?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Barcelona at the moment. That's a negotiating strategy.
You ain't kidding, brother. Bayern Munich in negotiations about the early return of German keeper Alexander Nubel from his loan spell at Monaco, rather than making a new signing to replace the injured Manuel Neuer, who injured himself in a skiing accident.
Stupid.
Dude.
Stupid.
Really? Skiing accident? Come on, man. That's just not smart. And then Jefferson Lerma's rejected multiple new contract offers at Bournemouth, so he could leave on a free when his contract expires next summer. That's from our friends at Football Insider. That's the first test for Bill Foley as the new owner for Bournemouth, who picked him up for £125 million, and it could be another $25 million more if they stay up this year in the Premier League. So it's either 125 or 150. That's a good piece of business for Bill Foley, I think.
Yeah, what's the annual payout for Premier League teams?
I think it's weighted, but I think at the bottom, you mean for TV money?
Yeah.
TV money, Premier League payouts, because it's weighted. Okay, club by club breakdown, equal share of 79 million in 21-22. So yeah, so each club is given an equal share of 79 million. This is from 21-22. Extra facility fee, depending on how many times they're broadcast. They then receive a 5.6 million pound share of the combined commercial income, extra share of overseas TV rights. So if you finish, let's say you finish 17th versus finishing 20th. Let's do it that way.
All right.
If you, in the 21-22 season, if you finished dead last, if you were Norwich, sorry, Shelley, and Michelle Not a Lab, for your Canaries, if you finished dead last in 21-22, you still left the building with parachute payments and the 1 year of 98.6 million pounds.
So essentially, this guy's buying this club for like next to nothing.
Pretty much.
He's going to get all that money back very quickly.
And so Southampton, who finished 17th in 21-22, got 111.8 million pounds by finishing 17th and surviving. 17th and surviving, you got 111.8 for surviving. And if you get relegated, you got 98.6. So your team was room temperature in pounds. And
body temperature in pounds.
Yes, body temperature in pounds. And you ended up going to the championship, and you get 3 years worth of parachute payments at the same time. So, yeah, 125 was what Foley paid. And if you finished last, it was 98.6 million pounds. So equal share, facility fees, merit payment, commercial revenue, 98.6 million pounds, finishing dead last and working your way to the championship.
Yeah, that's an incredible investment. That's a great investment.
So, yeah, good work by you, Bill Foley. The last thing that I wanted to focus on this morning, and it's probably going to be it's going to be a deep dive, because that's what we can do here with this space, is the Weil Report came out yesterday. And I know a lot of folks are sitting there and they're looking at it and going, okay, so the NWSL pushed out their report during the semifinal of the tournament overseas at the same time, so folks wouldn't pay attention. Jessica Berman took umbrage of that notion, the commissioner, in the post-release conference call that was had. But it's a 128-page document, the report of the NWSL and the NWSLPA joint investigative team by Weil and Covington. 14 months. Weil served as pro bono counsel to the NWSLPA on the matter. Joint investigative team conducted a thorough, independent joint investigation of all incidents of misconduct toward the NWSL players by individuals in a position of power since the NWSL was founded in 2012, as well as systemic and cultural issues within the league that have contributed to misconduct. 200,000 documents, over 200 interviews, current and former NWSL players, PA, U.S. Women's National Team Players Association leadership, club league staff, and U.S. soccer personnel. The JIT found widespread misconduct directed at NWSL players. Remember that when the Yates report came out, we had these same kinds of conversations, but this has been going on as well, separate and going on at the same time. Findings that club staff in positions of power engaged in sexual abuse, manipulation of players, subjected players to emotional abuse, crossed professional boundaries with players, created volatile and manipulative working conditions, and engaged in retaliation against players who attempted to report or did report concerns. The joint investigative team found misconduct against players has occurred at the majority of NWSL clubs at various times from the earliest years of the league to the present. And this is their opening statement, basically. The JIT also found underlying culture of the NWSL created fertile ground for misconduct to go unreported, and that U.S. Soccer, the NWSL, and its member clubs failed to appropriately develop policies and practices to prevent and eliminate misconduct, then failed to respond appropriately to misconduct when they were alerted to it. The report includes the JIT's recommendations for systemic improvements. Now, it's 128 pages, and it's a bit of a read, but we're going to skip ahead here to Section 5 which is the summary of inappropriate conduct. And so we're going to start right here and break it down. And like I said, I admit that this is going to be a lot of detail going in. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll go through this, and then there's analysis after and various folks. And we do have an update this morning from Chicago Red Stars as well. They've come out with a statement, part and parcel to all of this. So proceeding section and summary of inappropriate conduct. Section A, coaches and club staff. Paul Riley is the first name mentioned. Riley, and this is from the findings of the Weil Report. Riley engaged in sexual misconduct toward Sinead Farrelly and Mana Shim when Riley was Farrelly's coach prior to the NWSL. Coerced Farrelly into relations, and that's the word I'm going to use, on several occasions. Riley was the head coach of the Thorns after a night out drinking alcohol with Thorns players, brought Shim and Farrelly to his apartment, made additional alcohol available, and it went from there. Like I said, I'm not going to read this word for word because it's very, very uncomfortable, but I think you can, and this will be the required reading assignment for the weekend because there's a lot to digest here. So you go to Weil.com, and I'll post it here I'll post it in the Twitch pitch. And so there is a link. I've posted the link to the Weil Report in the Twitch pitch. You look at Paul Riley. Paul Riley has 3 rather long paragraphs in this. Engaged in other inappropriate conduct while at Thorns. Engaged in additional misconduct while at the North Carolina Courage. Upon reading the accounts of Mana Shim and Sinead Farrelly, Kaylee Kurtz recognized many of her own experiences with Riley. She felt that he had been grooming her and identified his conduct as abusive. Sexual comments toward her, giving detailed accounts of his sex life on a number of occasions, made shaming, non-performance-related remarks about Kurtz's weight and appearance. The second player credibly reported that Riley made comments regarding that player's weight and required her to report her weight to him daily. A third player reported Riley called players effing idiots, and he actually used the word. And I like I said, I'm editing here for the sake of the actual word. While at the Courage, and another player recalled Riley calling an injured player the clumsiest effing player I've ever coached. End quote. Riley declined to respond to requests to participate in this investigation from the Weil. Rory Dames, Red Stars head coach for 9 years, engaged in both verbal and emotional abuse and made racially insensitive and sexist comments to players, yelled at players, targeted certain players for harsh treatment, made personal insults, and blurred personal and professional boundaries with players. According to an external review conducted by the Red Stars in 2021, players described Dames as condescending, manipulative, aggressive, insulting, and an intimidator. Players told the JIT Dames threatened them, saying he would shred a player's contract or kick him off the team or out of practice if they made a mistake. During the U.S. Soccer Federation Rory Dames investigation, players reported multiple instances of Dames using racist language, including calling a black player a thug and describing her as, quote, acting like a gang member, end quote. Also made other inappropriate comments, including calling one player trailer trash, insinuating he found players attractive. Players credibly reported to the JIT Dames was emotionally manipulative and would use information about their personal lives against them. On one occasion, Dames made a derogatory comment to a player who was a mother, saying something like, quote, "What makes you think you're going to be a good mother if you can't communicate," end quote. Off the field, Dames blurred personal and professional boundaries, often invited certain players to have lunch or dinner, taking a small group of players out to dinner on a regular basis. Players reported in the USSF Dames investigation the dinners were inappropriate, in part because Dames' open favoritism had a negative impact on the team dynamic. Dames also texted certain players all the time, including late at night. Multiple players recognized the frequency of these invitations and communications as, quote, not normal and inappropriate. When players reported concerns about Dames or resisted his social invitations, they experienced retaliation. Day after one player raised a complaint about Dames, he texted the owner, Arnhem Whistler, that he was planning on waiving the player because of her complaint. The player was traded shortly thereafter. Dames declined requests to be interviewed in the investigation by Weil. Christy Holly, number 3. Christy Holly, and he was an assistant coach at Sky Blue for 13 to 15, head coach 16, 17, Racing Louisville head coach 2020 and 2021. And this is why we were going to bring Tyler Griever into the discussion from WHAS. Remember, we'll catch up with him later today, and that will be posted later this afternoon. Christy Holly engaged in sexual misconduct, made inappropriate sexual comments to players, verbally abused players, and retaliated against those who raised complaints about him. Between 2019 and 2021, engaged in repeated sexual misconduct and abuse targeting Aaron Simon. I'm not going to finish that paragraph because it's disgusting. Crossed boundaries with other players, making unwanted sexual advances and overt sexual remarks to them. For one instance, one player recalled Holly telling her in the weight room they wanted to grab her ass, in quotation marks, when he saw her squat. Players and staff at Sky Blue and Racing Louisville credibly reported Holly was verbally abusive and emotionally volatile. 2 people used the phrase Jekyll and Hyde to describe Holly. Players and former assistant coaches said that he would ream out players, verbally attack them, and play mind games. Retaliated against players who resisted his unwanted advances or complained about his conduct. When Simon told Holly he had to stop touching her because it was messing with her, in quotation marks, he began treating her poorly on the field, yelling at her, taking her out of games regardless of performance. After Holly learned that a different starting player had complained about his behavior to club leadership, he demoted her to training with reserve players. Christy Holly declined requests to be interviewed in the investigation. Number 4, Elise LaHue, Sky Blue Gotham VP 2018-2019, GM 2019-21. 2 paragraphs. Elise LaHue made unwanted sexual advances toward a player. Misconduct included sending the player inappropriate text messages that it continued even after the player told LaHue to accept they were working together, nothing more. LaHue expressed an emotional reliance on the player, repeatedly questioned the player's interactions with another individual, pressed the player for more attention. After participating in an initial interview with the JIT, LaHue, through her counsel, canceled another scheduled interview and declined the JIT's repeated requests to reschedule. Vera Poe, Houston Dash head coach 2018. Poe shamed players for their weight, attempted to exert excessive control over their eating habits. Players credibly reported. Poe criticized players for their appearance, for example, saying that some players were too big, in quotation marks, while praising other players for losing weight with no apparent correlation to performance or health. Poe appeared to want to control and micromanage players' diets and exercise regimens, even when her weight loss directives were inconsistent with sports medicine best practices. For example, players reported that Poe discouraged them from eating fruit because of its sugar content. Players reported that Poe's comments affected a teammate struggling with an eating disorder. Poe appeared for but refused to cooperate in an interview with the joint investigative team, but she provided a written denial of what she suspected were the allegations against her, including a statement that she has never remarked on any player's appearance. Craig Harrington, number 6. Red Stars assistant coach 2018-19, Utah Royals head coach 2020. Harrington blurred professional boundaries with players. That's one paragraph. That's the sentence of a lead paragraph. Paragraph 2, players recounted in instances which Harrington made sexual comments to and about players. Inappropriate comments about players' appearances and bodies, including wondering aloud what a player's hair looks like when she gets out of the shower, and giving disparaging nicknames to players he perceived as unattractive. Harrington denied each of these reports, but the JIT did not find his denials to be credible when viewed against the accounts of multiple other witnesses. Richie Burke, Washington Spirit head coach from 19 to 21, 2 paragraphs. Multiple players credibly reported Burke verbally and emotionally abused players, that he berated players in ways that were not constructive or conducive to improving performance. Molly Hensley Clancy, who, by the way, the Washington Post has done some fantastic work involving the Richie Burke aspect of this. Burke screamed and cursed at players even when those players were crying and visibly emotional. Burke called players insulting names like moron, effing, a-hole, and cheat, and explicitly threatened to waive players who challenged his conduct or otherwise disagreed with it. Given this conduct, players feared retaliation from Burke and held back from criticizing him out of fear they would be waived. Burke generally denied being verbally abusive, but acknowledged repeated examples of using demeaning and belittling language. Paragraph 2, Also used racial slurs, made racially insensitive and offensive jokes, undermined discouraged activism on issues of race. Burke used the N-word in recounting a story to a black player, made jokes and racially insensitive remarks about Black Lives Matter, used anti-Semitic language in comments to the team when interviewed by the JIT. Burke admitted making these comments but did not acknowledge their offensiveness. Number 8, Fareed Benstiti, OL Reign head coach 2020 and 21. When Benstiti was hired by Reign, he was explicitly instructed not to discuss weight or nutrition with players. Despite this instruction, multiple people observed Benstiti commenting on players' food consumption at the 2020 Challenge Cup, where Benstiti also hid food from players. In June 2021, Benstiti gave a team speech in which he criticized players' diets despite being told not to do so in a manner that multiple players found inappropriate. Benstiti did not respond to the joint investigative team's request to speak with him. Reference 9, James Clarkson, Houston Dash head coach GM 2019 until yesterday. James Clarkson communicated with players in a manner that created anxiety and fear for multiple players. Interviewees expressed Clarkson failed to recognize when his ineffective communication was detrimental to players' emotional well-being, though many players also stated Clarkson was tough but fair. In one instance, Clarkson suspected players had been drinking alcohol the night before a game, so he convened the players and reprimanded them in a manner that left multiple players feeling scared and attacked. In his interview by the JIT, Clarkson acknowledged having this meeting with players, but reported he did not single out or attack any players. In another instance, a player reported that Clarkson angrily asked her, "How the F are you so unprofessional?" when she had to come out of a game due to an injury. Clarkson's comment left the player crying, visibly upset. Clarkson denied making this comment, but witnesses corroborated Clarkson was visibly upset and frustrated at the player, and that the player was upset. Although Clarkson advocated for the development of a mental health program at the Dash, he also demonstrated insensitivity toward players' mental health in his interactions with them. In multiple instances, Clarkson failed to understand how his conduct impacted players. And then you have Amanda Cromwell, the head coach of Orlando Pride, with the assistants Sam Green and Aline Rice, assistant coaches. And this is the final front office reference. We then go into clubs and owners. And once again, we have statements from them as well. And like I said, it's 128 pages. It's going to take a lot of your time, but I thought it was important to bring this stuff up this morning. Amanda Cromwell, Sam Green engaged in retaliatory conduct toward players they believed would have participated in a March 2022 investigation into reports of Cromwell's inappropriate verbal conduct towards players and Cromwell and Green's display of inappropriate favoritism towards certain players. Numerous individuals reported Cromwell and Green stopped speaking to players who they believed had supported the allegations under investigation, who did not apologize to Cromwell and Green for their participation in the March 2022 investigation. One player identified by Cromwell and Green as having been involved was informed that the club was either waiving her or buying out her contract. Cromwell also sought to waive or trade other such players. The close timing between the investigation and the proposed player transactions, efforts by the coaches to discourage reporting and reward apologies for participation in the investigation, exclusion of the players suspected of supporting allegations against the coaches from a team-building activity, and comments the coaches made about these players being negative and not bought in, together indicate the coaches' actions against the players at issue were motivated, at least in part, by retaliatory reasons. The coaches both denied any retaliatory intent and instead claimed the reasons for their negative treatment of certain players and proposed player waivers or trades were based on either performance or the players' negative attitudes. Reese did not fully cooperate with the retaliation investigation, including by pressuring players to share favorable information with investigators. Cromwell, Green, and Reese's conduct fostered a pervasive fear of retaliation among players and some staff at the Pride. Reese acknowledged encouraging players to speak with investigators, but she denied telling them what to say. Clubs and owners. And literally, there are 8 separate instances, 8 separate clubs that have issues. And Turner has linked in the Twitch pitch to the statement by Racing Louisville this morning. And when we get to Racing Louisville, we'll read their statement in response to Weil. But this morning, we've also got news out of Chicago in addition to this as well. And like I said, I apologize that this is taking as long as it is, but it's stuff that we got to know. And sometimes it's going to take a while to get it because there are so many different tentacles, so many different teams, so many different individuals that were just completely and totally in the wrong. And it's inexcusable that all of this happened and was continued to allow to be happen. If I have my tense correct in English there. But there's a lot of stuff to ingest here. So, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I worked with in WPS for the Atlanta Beat for a couple of seasons when they were up in Kennesaw. And first of all, before I say anything else, let me say that the report is, I mean, it's just disgusting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it just is. Let me also say that it's completely unsurprising. There's nothing in here that's a surprise to me. And because with WPS, I developed some strong friendships with the players, and we would all have conversations. And I was more curious about, because the league was a reboot of the original WPS, the original Women's Professional Soccer League, that you had questions like, because there's obviously differences between how the men's league was set up and how the women's league was set up. And all the stuff that you're hearing in this report was echoed 15 years ago with WPS. Mm-hmm. There was not a report for it, but the same sort of stuff. Coaches being extraordinarily inappropriate with players, individuals high up in organizations being inappropriate, illicit relationships across the board, sexual harassment, name it, it was happening.
Yeah.
And part of me, I'm like, at least there's paperwork now.
Mm-hmm.
None of these ladies deserve this.
No.
They just wanted an opportunity to be able to play soccer and get paid for it, right? To do what they loved and get paid for it. And trust me, the money was not significant by any stretch of the imagination. But some of the stories that came out from some of these teams, some of these players, God bless them, it was horrific. There's something that has to be done with women's sports in this country, and the people across the board in sports who are in charge, because we're getting a lot of varsity blues moments from a lot of coaches, men's and women's, but because of the lack of institutional structure,
right,
and investment surrounding women's sports, it goes on longer unreported because that oversight, the quality of oversight's not there. The fear that the leagues or the teams are hanging by, it's essentially the sword of Damocles that could fall at any moment if somebody upsets the apple cart. So just do your role and shut up.
Right.
That is pervasive because there's not enough institutional support around these organizations. And there's also this, almost like a cultish mentality amongst some of the fan base who don't want to hear anything negative because it's all going to go away. The candle's going to get blown out if this sees the light of day. And I'm sorry, it has to see the light of day. Because there's no league that's sustainable if we have to rely on the martyrdom of women and girls losing their innocence to move the thing forward. This is not Snowpiercer. The engine does not have to run on the blood of the passengers in order to keep moving. This is not some sort of religious institution that has millennia of BS that has just been buried and shoved under rugs and pushed into corners. This is a business. And for too long, we have forced women and girls to be martyrs to stay silent so the economic engine can keep turning. And this happens because there's not enough institutional support to have the level of oversight required. And we're getting there, but at a cost I think is too steep. Because we could say, oh, well, at least they found out about it. Hell no, man. People have known about this since WPS version 2. I can only imagine what WPS version 1 was.
Right.
WPS version 2, I can only speak from personal experience and stories relayed directly to me. And from the players' mouths themselves. And I will never out these players. I will never name drop because some of the stories are so damn horrific that it would make we would lose our lunches over it. And for too long, we've asked women and girls to be martyrs for the sake of an economic engine. And we've asked people to stay silent because the fear of the extermination of leagues and teams. And I'm sorry, if the leagues and the teams have to be exterminated in order to ensure that, things get built the right way, then let it die. Because there's no reason for any of this. So I don't know what the answer is. I can only tell you that it's pervasive. It's been going on for a very, very, very long time. And there are a lot of people who should never work in organized athletics ever again. And with that, I'm going to shut up.
No worries. All right, into the team section here. And basically every team, sadly, short of the new franchises out west, are mentioned in the Weil Report. Chicago Red Stars, and they came out with a statement earlier this morning. Throughout Roy Dame's tenure as head coach of the Red Stars, owner Arnim Whistler minimized and dismissed players' concerns that Dames was verbally and emotionally abusive. Whistler was confronted with players' concerns repeatedly beginning in at least 2014 in the form of player survey feedback, direct conversations with players, and Whistler's own participation in the Dames investigation. Rather than removing Dames, reprimanding him, or initiating an investigation into players' allegations of abuse, Whistler continually defended Dames and expressed suspicion about players' motives for raising concerns. When the league initiated an investigation into a complaint against Dames in 2018, Whistler spoke directly to Dames about the complainant and created the risk that Dames would retaliate against the player. On the eve of the Washington Post's November 2021 story on Dames' abusive conduct, and I would recommend going back and reading that from Molly Hensley Clancy. In the midst of two ongoing investigations by the JIT and the U.S. Soccer into misconduct towards players, and despite Dames having already resigned, Whistler entered into a confidential separation agreement with Dames. The agreement provided Dames with an additional 5 weeks of pay and prohibited Dames and the Red Stars from disparaging the other or disclosing to anyone the existence and content of the agreement, with no exception for cooperation with the ongoing investigations. Whistler acknowledged the agreement and claimed the non-disparagement clause was standard. 5 additional weeks of pay in a confidential separation agreement, non-disparagement clause, and that was added to the mix.
A non-disparagement clause.
Mm-hmm.
Protect the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And David, I think you're 100% right. The fact that you have a team like Portland that has a much larger infrastructure due to the combined work of MLS and NWSL, that to me is even more egregious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have all the brakes in place, but just like the brakes on a car, they're only functional when someone elects to press the pedal. And someone has to elect to press the pedal, otherwise the vehicle goes out of control. And in Portland, nobody pressed the brakes. And across the league now, it looks like no one was pressing the brakes. Non-disparagement clause. God forbid someone say something that could harm the business. Okay? We have this clouded view of what protections are in place and who those protections are for when it comes to certain business entities. there are some places where the HR component is not there to protect the worker. It's there to reduce risk to the company, right? Somebody who is engaging in harassment could negatively affect the company. So it's there, right? That's why the guardrails are there for them. It's not there to protect you, the individual. It's there to reduce risk for the company. Lawsuits cost money. There will be billable hours. Non-disparagement means that these people can't go on Twitter, they can't go on social media and say, hey, this is what happened to me at this place, right? You think cancel culture doesn't work? That's why they have non-disparagement agreements in place now, because they know these players will go and they will use their very large platforms to say, hey, at Team X, this happened to me. And when that gets put out there, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It cannot go back in. And now it's billable hours for a PR firm, billable hours for a lawyer. And it's cheaper to say, hey, here's some money, shut up and go away and sign this agreement. And sometimes people don't even get the money part. They just get the, hey, look, we won't badmouth you to your next employer. So sign this, shut up and go away. And I know I've watched that happen in several places. And it really is, you don't have to have a daughter to be disgusted by this. You don't have to have a little sister to be disgusted by this. We are holding in reverence the wrong things. When you make someone who has been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, sign a non-disparagement agreement, and that's the priority.
Well, I mean, this is
tells you everything you need to know.
This is the coach. The coach was let go. This is in Chicago. This is the coach.
Mm-hmm.
The coach was let go. The owner backed the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Whistler backed Rory Dames at every opportunity.
Yep.
But when it's like, dude, I got to let you go. But on your way out the door, here's an extra 5 weeks pay. Just don't say anything bad.
Yeah.
That's what happened in Chicago. I've had your back for all this time, but I got to let you go. Wolves are at the door.
Mm-hmm.
But to go, tell you what I'm going to do.
Yep.
I'm going to give you an extra 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't say anything bad and we're cool.
Yep.
That's what happened in Chicago.
Yeah. And who does that protect?
It protects Chicago Red Stars at the time.
Okay.
The business.
Yeah, the business. It protects the business. It protects the owner who had the coach's back.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the coach can't go out and say, well, I didn't know I was doing anything wrong because the ownership had my back the whole way. So if I was doing something wrong, then why was ownership backing me? Oh, now we're having a very different conversation, aren't we? And that's the challenge here, is that we are protecting businesses. We're protecting, and excuses will be thrown out. Oh, but if we close shop, who will give these girls the chance to play? Well, who's going to give them the chance to play where they're not going to be harassed? Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with who's going to give them an opportunity to play where they don't have to go home and worry about their food intake. And look, food intake has been something that across the board, and on the men's side as well, where coaches have wanted to have that level of influence over the players. And that's Europe, that's South America, United States, and so forth. That doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's healthy. It's something that's toxic that has to be rooted out regardless. But again, it's if they wear this cloth, they carry the shield of this crusader who and say we are loyally protecting girls' rights to play sports and be paid a living wage, and please pay no attention to the harassment behind the curtain. And that's what we're doing right now. That's what happens. I don't know how anyone in good conscience can pay for, and this is just me. I can't support a business that does that. I can't support a business that does that. I don't know. And on social media, you see Thorns fans saying, yeah, canceling season tickets, walking away from it until certain individuals are gone. Like Merritt Paulson, and his name has been dropped, and
And Paulson's getting rid of the thorns, but there's I think a decent discussion about him getting rid of the Portland Timbers as well as a part of this.
Yeah, and so it's we're protecting the wrong things, and for too long there's been this pushback of, and it's aided by, well, women's soccer ain't a thing anyway. Who goes? No one goes to women's soccer.
Tell that to the new clubs in the NWSL who are having over 30,000 in San Diego.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if there is a large group of players who are capable of playing at the highest levels of the game. There are fans who want the leagues to exist. The problem that I keep seeing over and over again is they put the cart before the horse. They say, players, play, games, go, now. Because they're afraid of losing the talent to European clubs as the European women's sides develop, infrastructure to allow them to be paid more and play in larger venues at better facilities in some cases. And so the American teams freak out. They start a league. They rush it into production. They rush the marketing. They rush the players on the field. That does not allow time for the infrastructure to be put in place that allows women the protections necessary to play the game without some buffoonery taking place and without this toxic BS taking place. Evil hides in vacuums. It hides in power vacuums. It hides It hides in the dark. It hides in the absence of oversight. And oversight has become one of those political hot button words that everybody likes to throw around. There's too much oversight. Well, evil thrives when there's a lack of oversight, because greed takes over, and it allows individuals who can't control their urges to act upon them. And then the greed, those who can't control their greed say, well, we're not going to hit the brakes on this, because what happens? We won't make a dime if this happens, if this sees the light of day. And I think the only way NWSL can make it work, and make it work in the eyes of fans, and to give any illusion of awareness that they acknowledge the problem, that they're going to do something about it, is you do a moratorium on the league. We're stopping play. We are stopping everything. And we are going to put structures in place to protect these women. And whether it is each team hires an independent counsel, or the league hires an independent counsel and places independent counsel in the city that the team happens to be in, not at the facility, not under the same roof, but with an understanding that a player calls, it's immediately investigated. There's no Boolean logic taking place. There's no yes, no, we're not investigating this, we will investigate it. No. It's not a 1 or 0. It's not binary. It's a 1. Woman comes forward, it's investigated fully. And that's without fail, without question. That's the only way that I think the players will be able to show up and have any sort of idea that they are being looked after. 2, there must be firm boundaries put in place between coaching staffs and the players. And this is going to be probably more on the player side of saying, hey, look, if you're a union member, you can't, there cannot be groups of 2, 3, 4 players who can be at any private setting, private function without representation present. Be it your agent, be it, something to that effect. Anything other than that, in my opinion, is another attempt, a failed, weak, sad attempt to brush it under the rug. And I'm ranting, and I'm sorry.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is why we have the show as we have it. Yes, we're Soccer's morning show, but the idea is when you have topics like this that deserve the space that we give it, there's a reason for it. There's a reason to discuss things to this depth and breadth, because something like this has to be reported on, has to be shared, has to be, it has to be laid out here for everyone who is a fan of this sport. And you can't just say, okay, well, they did something. All right, let's move on. You can only move on if you know the information and all of the information that's attached, whether it's the Yates report, whether it's the Weil follow-up, whether it's any aspect of all of these things, the independent investigations that happen in each of these markets, guys like Ryan Clark out at the Oregonian, Molly Hensley Clancy, Nancy Armour. There are so many folks who have done tremendous work, Meg Linehan at The Athletic, where all of this stuff is not being swept under any kind of a rug. It is out in the open, and there are times when the only way to go forward is to shine light on things that aren't pretty. And that's where we are here with the NWSL.
But it's out in the open. The information is there. It's publicly available. Everyone can read it. Knowledge is very different than action.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know what's going to happen to these owners who have aided and abetted some of these sick clowns who can't keep their hands and their googly eyes off the players. I want to know what's going to happen to the owners who refuse to hit the brakes or refuse to investigate or dismissed player claims of abuse. I want to know what's going to happen to them. Information we have and we're grateful for, but I'm sorry, I'm greedy. I'm greedy because I want action.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm greedy because I want and demand. I'm going to be Veruca Salt for a moment. I'm going to demand that something happen and give it to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched this happen before. I've watched this story. The only difference is that we're changing a little bit of information before the climax, and that is that this information is now public. As before, where it was private, now it's public, and I want to know what is going to be done. It's great. You have a big gun. Are you going to shoot it or not? All right. Next time you have to shoot. Don't talk so much.
There you go, Tuco.
So that's what I want to see. I want action now. Enough talking of we've had this great, thorough report. Put your money where your mouth is. And if teams have to fold, teams have to fold. Because we cannot march any more young women into the teeth of this machine for the sake of putting a product on television because it's quote unquote the right thing to do, or to do it because it's fair and equitable. No, fair and equitable would be giving the women a place to play where they can go without being harassed. That is fair and equitable. We aren't achieving that at the moment. There's a problem with that machine. And at the moment we keep sending these women into the breach. And I'm sorry, I demand a bit more action out of the league than a report.
In the Weil section, and we've gotten into clubs and owners here a little bit. We're at page 108. We mentioned Chicago. Kansas City, in August of 2021, players brought concerns to club management about Hugh Williams' ineffectiveness as a coach, negative and discouraging comments toward players. Players from the team met with club owners Angie and Chris Long and other club staff to raise concerns. Players reported the club did not take sufficient action to address players' concerns after the meeting. Multiple current and former players from the current raised concerns that Williams retaliated against players for participating in the meeting with ownership, both by mistreating players who complained by taking actions to remove them from the club. By the end of the 21 season, multiple players who had participated in the meeting were traded, waived, or not re-signed. Williams was moved to a front office role at the end of that season.
Front office role.
And to add to this, we do have a coda on Hugh Williams, by the way. The Current came out with a statement yesterday, and Hugh Williams' contract ended at the end of November of 2022. The statement did not mention Hugh Williams at all. So Hugh Williams just it looks like Hugh Williams just kind of was told to fade into the sunset, and there was no mention by the Current of Hugh Williams in their statement yesterday. Joint investigative team requested an interview of the Current owners. Angie Long sat for an interview, did not recall any concerns about Williams' treatment of players being raised at the August 2021 meeting. Instead, recalling players shared concerns about the level of training and the team's poor performance. Long did not indicate that she was concerned about potential retaliation against the players who spoke up at the meeting. Portland Thorns were mentioned. We mentioned Paul Riley version 1. North Carolina Courage were mentioned. Paul Riley version 2. Sky Blue and Gotham, we've mentioned Christy Holly. OL Reign, we mentioned Ben Stiti. Racing Louisville. Christy Holly there. When Racing Louisville learned of Holly's, and I'm skipping sections here to the bottom of page 107. Racing Louisville learned of Holly's sexual misconduct toward Aaron Simon. Club acted quickly, firing him within hours of speaking to Simon, and in spite of a request from the NWSL that they pause to let the league investigate. However, the club did not share enough information about the reason for Holly's termination, leaving both players and public uncertain about why he was fired. Club announced Holly was terminated for cause, but the announcement did not specify that the cause was sexual misconduct. Players reported they felt confused by the information shared with them and did not understand exactly why Holly had been fired. Days later, Racing Louisville entered into a severance agreement with Holly, which stated the club's executive team and Holly could not make, quote, any written or verbal communication in any form to any third party that denigrates, disparages, criticizes, defames, or is derogatory of the other, end quote. Sound familiar? Citing the non-disparagement provision in the agreement, the club and its executives declined to speak freely with the JIT about Holly until the fourth quarter of 2022, significantly delaying this aspect of the investigation. The agreement also expressly permitted Holly to provide, quote, an honest assessment, end quote, of players' performances, including Simon, notwithstanding the risk that he would retaliate against Simon or others by sharing negative feedback with scouts or coaches. This morning, Racing Louisville came out with a statement after this was released, and it is several paragraphs off the top. To our players, past and present, we're sorry for what happened during Christy Holly's tenure. We take responsibility for what happened, and we pledge to ensure a better team culture moving forward. Our athletes should never have been put in this situation. We take responsibility for hiring Christy Holly, and we deeply regret not having a more stringent vetting process in place, something we have since corrected. The report clearly confirmed when Racing Louisville learned of Holly's sexual misconduct toward Aaron Simon, the club acted quickly. We mentioned that. Regarding the investigation, we ultimately cooperated fully by making personnel available for interviews and providing documents requested. We felt it was critical that the public and community stakeholders know the full truth of what happened. Accountability begins with transparency. And they go for another 4 paragraphs mentioning the steps that they've taken to foster an improved environment. And they're making 3 other commitments to players, fans, and community stakeholders, working with the league, making available psychologists and chaplains, scheduling town hall events. It is a lengthy statement. And Turner, thank you for linking to that this morning. So that's
they're afraid they didn't mention the sexual they didn't mention the sexual stuff because they were afraid that he was going to sue him. That she was going to sue him, rather. That there's going to be a lawsuit. So you can't. The lawyers always. They can't say just say they're firing with cause. That way they can't. There's paperwork for that. But anything else, that's they can. They'll file a lawsuit.
Our current team president was not involved with crafting the NDA. We strongly support the league severely restricting their use. As to the team meeting of June 2021, we take responsibility for failing to fully understand how Holly's treatment of the players was negatively affecting the team and individual athletes. Club leadership tried to clear the air between players and the coaching staff by calling this meeting, but in retrospect, this should have been handled differently. For that, we apologize and have learned from the situation. If individual players were retaliated against by Holly, we apologize. We've made clear to the new coaching staff that retaliation will not be tolerated. We expect every player to be treated with respect. We now have the ability to actively monitor this kind of issue with the implementation of the real response system, a tool for players to anonymously communicate problems they are having. In the aftermath of Holly's tenure, Racing Louisville cleaned house, made several changes to our coaching staff and the way our organization functions. The staff and culture of 2021 is not the staff and culture of Racing Louisville FC today. We have fully embraced the need for change that protects our players, provides them with the support they deserve to feel safe and protected. That's the statement from Racing Louisville. Look, U.S. Soccer was pointed out at the Weil Report. That included Lisa Levine, Lydia Walk, Sunil Gulati, going back to 2014. Dan Flynn was named here. The league itself was named for being culpable. Amanda Duffy, Lisa Baird. And then you have recommendations that go for a while. A couple of other things. James Clarkson, we mentioned after everything came out yesterday with the Weil Report, Clarkson's contract was not renewed as general manager for the Houston Dash. The statement from the Red Stars this morning directed our efforts over the first paragraph was an apology. Directed our efforts over the past year toward making positive and intentional changes centered around fostering a safe and productive environment for players and staff, rebuilding trust across our organization and sports community. They mentioned the changes that they've made, securing player housing, improving technical facilities. Players, front office, technical staff have shared with the board a collective desire to shift our efforts toward the future. Inner Circle Sports has been engaged to manage the active sale of the majority owner shares, meaning Arnim Whistler is out in a timely and prudent manner, and also keeping the Red Stars in Chicago. A couple of other things. The report states in the same section dealing with that we mentioned. Hang on just a second. I want to get the context correct. Lisa Levine, U.S. Soccer General Counsel for the league from 2017 to 21. Meg Linehan points this out. The report states that in the same section, quote, Levine claimed that Fairley withheld her experiences with Riley in 2015, and she asserted through her counsel that Fairley and Shim consciously did not explain Fairley's alleged sexual history with Riley when they emailed the NWSL in 2021 as part of an effort to gain leverage over the league. Levine claimed that their failure to do so contributed to Riley's remaining in the league until Fairley and Shim went public in September of 2021. So NWSL General Counsel Lisa Levine is laying blame on Mana Shim and Sinead Fairley over a 6-year gap from the initial report in 2015 to 2021. So Lisa Levine lays blame on Mana Shim and Sinead Fairley as a part of all of this. Yeah. So, like I said, honestly, 39 systemic recommendations that were given by the JIT. Ultimately, obviously, those are up to new Commissioner Jessica Berman, the Board of Governors, including Merritt Paulson, Arnim Whistler, both being announcing their intent to sell. You also have 2 committees under soccer purview, one of them led by Daniel Slayton after the release of the Yates Report. New committee on participant safety intended to be more long-term, more far-reaching, led by former player Mana Shim, who was one of the 2 players to share her own experiences with Riley on the record when the Athletics started all of this last year. So we have effectively spent an hour on the Weil Report. Frankly, we could have spent a lot more on the Weil Report, but I will leave that to all of you. Once again, required reading, the Yates Report, the Weil Report, when it comes to the NWSL. And as things continue to evolve here with the league, we're going to continue to report on it and let you know what's going on. But yeah, it was a long morning and a long afternoon yesterday when it came to the release of this and trying to read 128 pages of information when it came to what this group found when it came to the NWSL, Nick. A lot to read, but a worthy read.
Yeah, I think if you feel very passionate about soccer growth and development in this country, you need to read this, because it's one thing to say, all the stuff that we need to do here in America to develop players from a technical perspective, how players are trained within a system, the growth within the pyramid and so forth. It's another thing to look at, okay, where can this go wrong? Where can we lose sight and become so hyper-focused only on success that we lose our ethics and our moral compass along the way? And all the success in the world doesn't mean a damn thing if you lose your moral compass and your sense of ethics in the process. There needs to be, the infamous triad of requirements for any future hires within NWSL: energy, intelligence, and integrity. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have that last one, they are going to kill your business. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point, someone with energy, and intelligence and no integrity will kill your business. It is a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb. I would much rather have someone with integrity who has very good intelligence, probably not as much energy, or some combination. But I must have integrity for someone who is going to be hired. That is a non-negotiable. It must be started with that. And if that's part of the growth and development of the game, because if you cannot protect your players and keep them safe, then that's how you end up with a DuPont situation. That's how you end up, with some of these other, with women's U.S. women's gymnastics. That's how you end up with Michigan State. That's how you end up with Ohio State. All these Penn State. All of these situations where male and female athletes, you cannot keep them safe without ensuring that you process everything, not with just success in mind, but also ensuring that you're doing it the right way. You may not be as successful, and that's fine, because you will be more successful over the long run if you operate with a basic sense of decency, integrity, and a moral compass. And so, yeah, everybody needs to read this, in my opinion. That's just me, though.
Yeah, no, it's not just you; it's a lot of folks. And then if you have a subscription to The Athletic, I would also recommend Meg Linehan's work from yesterday, and go through the multiple articles that she wrote having to do with the league and the individuals that we talked about and their roles in it, and all of the business aspects that were a part of this as well. But we've gone over time traditionally, but like I said, the loose construct of 11:05, 9:05 to 11:05, it is a loose construct. But when we have stories like this that we have to that we feel that are important to put out in the SDH verse, we do it, and that's what we're here for. So tomorrow we'll have our friends from Beyond Goals at 9:30. And we'll start things off at 9, have Beyond Goals at 9:30, pick things back up at 10, talk about the weekend really quickly. I know that there are other things going on today. For those of you who are looking at stuff to view, you've got, I think, a Women's Champions League, I believe, is coming up in short order later today. Juve and Zurich at 12:45. Juve's a minus 2,000. Rosengarten, Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich's a minus 909. Also on the board, the back end of the doubleheaders at 3, Arsenal and Lyon, probably the match of the day. Lyon's a plus 139. Your draw's a plus 261. Arsenal's a plus 156. Barca's a big favorite against Benfica also at 3 o'clock. Rangers and Hibs and the Scottish Premiership is at 3. Friendlies also as well. And then the Copa por Mexico, Club America and Necaxa is at 10 o'clock tonight. Club America is a minus 115. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. And just keep an eye out on the network for all the other stuff that we've got going on, because it's a very, very busy time. I know a lot of folks are looking for the release of the Major League Soccer schedule for 2023. We are too. And when that happens, we will analyze the ever-loving daylights out of it. So for everybody here at SDH, Nick, since it's the end of the show, send us home.
Yeah, I can't do the normal one. So please take care of each other. There aren't too many people looking out, so least we could do is look out for each other. Until next time, take care. We'll see you tomorrow.